The desert sun hung like molten iron in the sky, pouring heat across endless waves of sand and stone. Sergeant Sophia Martinez squinted through the thermal scope of her M1A2 Abrams, call sign Iron Wolf. She had been in the Armored Corps for 3 years, but on this day, something about the valley below kept her nerves sharp as a blade. The mission had started like routine overwatch. Scan, report, and keep her tank concealed on the ridge, while friendly units scouted the valley. From her position, she could see everything: the fractured rocks, the dust swirling in the hot wind, and the figures of 12 Navy operators threading their way across the open ground. They moved with discipline, weapons ready, every step calculated. On paper, their job was simple: check the valley for insurgent activity and withdraw. But paper and reality often told different stories. Through her scope, Sophia noticed movement, small, deliberate shadows slipping between rocks. Her gut tightened. She had seen enough ambushes to recognize one when it was unfolding. These weren't scattered fighters. They were organized, coordinated, waiting for the right moment to strike. Her radio crackled. "Iron Wolf, this is Overwatch. Maintain position. Do not engage unless ordered." The voice of Captain Robert Morrison, calm and certain, filled her headset. Orders were orders. Sophia acknowledged, but her eyes never left the battlefield. Below, the operators, led by Commander John Davis, were already adjusting, taking defensive positions. They hadn't expected a fight this large. From what Sophia could count, at least 40 hostiles were fanning out, taking the high ground, their movements rehearsed. "Overwatch, this is Neptune 6. John's voice came across the net, firm but controlled. "We've got eyes on multiple contacts. Requesting immediate extraction." "Extraction bird is 20 minutes out," Morrison replied. "Find cover and hold your ground." Sophia's hands clenched on the controls. 20 minutes. Looking through the thermal screen, she did quick math. The insurgents would close the circle in less than 10. And when they did, John and his team wouldn't last long. Inside the tank, her gunner Michael Torres muttered, "They're boxed in. We could end this with 3 rounds." Sophia's jaw tightened. He was right, but that wasn't her call to make. "Not without orders," she said quietly, though the words felt like lead. The firefight began. Muzzle flashes lit up the valley, echoing like thunder between the stone walls. John's men fought with precision, dropping targets, shifting cover, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and the enemy was tightening the noose. Neptune 6 to Overwatch. 2 men down, ammo running low. "We need support now." John's comm was breaking. Sophia could hear Morrison's clipped reply. "Authorization for heavy support is in progress. Hold position." In progress. The words burned. Somewhere far from the battlefield, officers behind desks were running assessments, calculating risks, and signing papers, while 12 men fought for their lives. Sophia's scope caught a glimpse of the enemy mortar team, setting up. If they launched shells into the valley, John's unit would be finished. Her hands moved without thought, range, wind deflection, firing solution, all lined up. Michael was already tracking. "Say the word, Sergeant," he whispered. Sophia's heart pounded. She thought of the oath she'd sworn, of every drill and every briefing. She thought of the families who would never see their sons again if she obeyed the silence of protocol. She thought of the machine beneath her, 70 tons of steel and firepower, sitting idle while good men died. The chain of command said wait. Her conscience said act. For 3 long years, she had been the soldier who followed every rule. But now, staring at the valley where 12 shadows fought against the tide, she felt something inside her shift. Orders were one thing. Saving lives was another. She inhaled deeply, steadying her voice. Michael lowered high explosive. The gunner hesitated. "Sergeant, we don't have authorization." Sophia's eyes stayed fixed on the battlefield. "I know. Load it anyway." The round slid into the chamber with a heavy, echoing clunk. Every second was a countdown, every heartbeat a choice. And Sophia Martinez knew, today, she would no longer be just another name on a roster. Today, she would either save 12 men or destroy everything she had built. The first thunder of gunfire echoed through the valley like a storm breaking over the desert. Sophia Martinez felt every shot as if it rattled inside her chest. Through the thermal screen, she tracked flashes of heat from rifles and machine guns, the sudden bloom of figures collapsing in the dust. 12 men stood their ground, holding off wave after wave, while the enemy crept closer with the patience of hunters who knew the kill was inevitable. Overwatch, this is Neptune 6. John Davis's voice came across the radio, still steady though she could hear the strain beneath. We are taking heavy fire. Multiple hostiles advancing from 3 sides. We need that bird faster. The reply came sharp and cold, the way official channels always sounded. Neptune 6, extraction ETA 15 minutes. Hold position and conserve ammunition. 15 minutes. Sophia gritted her teeth. She knew how long a minute could feel in a firefight, how many lives could be lost in the space between seconds. On the ridge, she was safe inside 70 tons of armor, her crew shielded by composite plates and steel. Down there, John and his men had nothing but rocks and determination. Inside the turret, Michael Torres adjusted his sights, his finger hovering close to the trigger guard. "Sergeant," he said quietly, "we could cut a hole in that line. Just give the word." Sophia didn't answer. Her loader, Corporal Emma Price, shifted nervously. "Orders say hold," she reminded, though her voice was soft, unsure. "Orders. Always orders." Sophia thought back to training, to the endless drills where instructors hammered into them the sacred chain of command. A tank crew was powerful, yes, but only when coordinated with the larger machine of the Army. One piece breaking off to act alone could compromise an entire operation. Every briefing, every manual had repeated it like scripture. Do not engage without authorization. But what good were rules if men died while waiting for signatures? She turned her scope again on the valley. Through the haze of heat and dust, she counted enemy shapes fanning wider, pushing the operators into a tightening knot. The insurgents had elevation, numbers, and ammunition to spare. She could almost hear their shouted commands, see the confidence in their movements. They knew they had trapped prey. Overwatch, Neptune 6. John's voice cracked through again. 2 wounded, repeating, 2 down. Ammunition at 30%. We cannot hold 15 minutes. Sophia's stomach turned cold. She could imagine their position collapsing, see the bodies falling one by one until silence took the valley. She closed her eyes for half a breath, then opened them, steadying her thoughts. "Iron Wolf, this is Overwatch." Captain Robert Morrison's voice broke in. "Report enemy anti-armor capability." Sophia scanned the battlefield carefully. She spotted machine guns, rifles, mortars being prepared on a slope. Dangerous, yes, but against an Abrams? Hardly. "Minimal anti-armor threat, Overwatch," she replied. "Copy that. Continue observation. Await authorization." It was like watching men drown while someone filled out a form to decide whether to throw them a rope. Michael's knuckles whitened on the controls. "Sergeant, they'll be gone in 5 minutes." Sophia exhaled slowly. The weight of the decision pressed down like the sun overhead. Every soldier knew what disobedience meant. Court-martial, rank stripped, career ended. But what did it mean to stand by and watch men die when you had the means to stop it? She thought of the oath she had sworn at 19, standing tall with her hand raised, to defend her country, to protect American lives. That oath had not included a clause about waiting for permission. Her headset crackled again. Morrison's voice clipped and firm. "Iron Wolf, you are not to engage. Hold your ground." Michael looked at her, eyes searching. Emma's hands hovered over the loader's controls. They trusted her, but they needed her choice. Sophia swallowed hard. In the scope, she saw an insurgent team carrying a crate, ammunition for the mortars. If they set up, John's position would vanish in a cloud of fire and shrapnel. She could stop them with a single round. Her training told her to wait. Her conscience screamed otherwise. "Emma," she said softly, "prepare high explosive." The loader froze. "Sergeant, you're sure?" Sophia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I've never been more sure." The shell slid into place, locking with a final clunk. Michael's targeting reticle steadied, his breath shallow. Over the radio, John's voice came through again, harsh with desperation. Neptune 6 to Overwatch. We will not last. Requesting immediate support. I say again, immediate. No answer came this time. Just silence. Sophia stared at the valley, at the men fighting for every second. She thought of their families, waiting somewhere far away, unaware that bureaucracy might steal their sons today. She thought of the lives balanced on her decision, of the cost to her future, and the truth settled heavy in her chest. Sometimes, the right choice meant breaking the rules. She drew in a breath, braced against the seat, and gave the order that would change everything. Michael, she said, target that mortar team. On my mark. The words hung in the turret like thunder waiting to strike. The desert was alive with chaos. Gunfire rattled the rocks, echoing through the valley like a drumbeat of doom. From her perch on the ridge, Sergeant Sophia Martinez tracked every movement through the scope of her Abrams. The SEALs below were holding, but barely. Their perimeters shrank tighter with each passing second. Dust swirled around them, stained with smoke, fire, and the silhouettes of advancing fighters. Inside the turret, the tension was unbearable. The crew waited for her word, every second stretching into eternity. Gunner Michael Torres had his crosshairs fixed on the mortar crew, hauling shells into position. Loader Emma Price kept her hands steady on the heavy round she had just locked into place. Both were ready. Both were silent. Both looked to her. Her radio crackled again with Captain Robert Morrison's voice, sharp as steel. Iron Wolf, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Await further orders. Sophia pressed her lips into a thin line. Those words were a chain around her throat, dragging her deeper into a place where her values and her duty collided. For 3 years, she had worn the uniform with pride, following orders with precision. But now, she saw 12 men about to be erased in front of her eyes, while the bureaucracy of command measured risks like coins on a scale. Her heart pounded. Her conscience roared. She could feel the decision taking shape, heavy as the tank itself. "Sergeant," Michael muttered, voice tight. "We've got the shot. We can end that mortar before it fires." "Orders say no," Emma whispered, though her voice carried no conviction, only fear. Sophia's eyes never left the scope. The insurgents had begun setting their weapon, steadying it for the first strike. If that round dropped into the SEAL's position, at least half of them wouldn't live to see the helicopter. She felt a cold certainty settle over her. Waiting meant death. Her mind drifted, unbidden, to her earliest days in uniform. She remembered standing in formation, the oath of service ringing in her ears. Not words about following every order, but about defending lives and protecting her country. She remembered the pride in her father's eyes when she shipped out for training, the unspoken promise that she would serve with honor. None of those memories included watching soldiers die because she had done nothing. The insurgents adjusted their aim. Sophia's decision crystallized. She pressed her headset's transmitter. "Overwatch, this is Iron Wolf," she said, her voice calm though her chest burned. "I am preparing to engage enemy positions, threatening Neptune 6. The reply was instant, fierce. "Negative, Iron Wolf. That is a direct violation of orders. Hold your fire." She muted the channel before Morrison could finish. Her crew froze, startled by the sudden silence. Sophia turned her head slightly, enough to see them both in the dim glow of the turret. "Specialist Torres," she said evenly. "Is that round still loaded?" Michael nodded once. "Loaded and ready." "Emma," Sophia continued, "stand by to reload." The loader swallowed hard but gave a quick, firm nod. Sophia's eyes returned to the scope. Her finger hovered over the control. The insurgents had just placed their first shell into the tube. She whispered the words that would change everything. "Fire!" The Abrams roared, the recoil shaking the earth itself. A thunderous blast hurled the shell across the valley at more than a mile per second. In less than a breath, the round struck its target. A brilliant flash tore through the mortar crew, the explosion consuming men, weapons, and rock in a storm of fire. The shockwave rolled through the valley. Dust clouds rose. Silence lasted for half a heartbeat. Then chaos erupted. Enemy fighters froze, stunned by the impossible. A tank gun had spoken, its voice absolute, its judgment final. Panic spread through their lines. Shouts echoed as they tried to reorganize, but their rhythm was broken. Sophia exhaled slowly, her pulse thundering in her ears. One shot fired. One order broken. There was no going back. Her headset flared to life again, Morrison's fury blazing. Iron Wolf, cease fire immediately. You are in violation of command protocol. Return to base at once. She ignored him. Michael, she said, her voice cutting clean through the noise. Next target. Enemy machine gun nest, Eastern Ridge, grid 567432. Identified. Michael replied instantly, as if the weight of disobedience had already been lifted from him. Emma, load another high explosive. Loaded. Fire. The second round screamed across the valley, detonating against the nest that had been pinning the SEALs with heavy fire. Rock and steel flew skyward. Survivors scrambled in confusion, their confidence shattering as the thunder of American armor declared itself again. Below, John Davis's voice cut through the chaos, this time tinged with disbelief. Neptune 6 to Iron Wolf, was that you? Over. Sophia keyed her mic to the SEAL frequency. Copy, Neptune 6. We're clearing you a corridor north. Get ready to move. There was a pause, then John's reply, tight with urgency and relief. Understood. We'll be ready. Sophia lined up her next targets, her crew moving with seamless precision now. She had broken the dam. There was no more hesitation, no more waiting for approval. The tank's firepower would carve a path through the valley, and 12 men would live because of it. The chain of command had tried to hold her back, but in the desert heat, with lives slipping away by the second, Sophia Martinez had chosen something greater than obedience. She had chosen to act. The Abrams was no longer silent. It had become a thunderclap rolling across the valley, each round striking like a hammer of the gods. The first 2 shots had shattered the mortar crew and the machine gun nest. Now smoke curled upward in twisting pillars, while enemy fighters scrambled to regroup. The insurgents had gone from hunters to prey in the space of 30 seconds. Inside Iron Wolf, the air was heavy with the metallic tang of spent casings and the low hum of the engine. Gunner Michael Torres adjusted his sights, calm now, his nerves burned away by action. Loader Emma Price moved like a machine, feeding shells into the breach, her hands steady despite the storm outside. At the commander's seat, Sophia Martinez felt the tank thrum with life beneath her, a beast unchained at last. Next target, she ordered. Identified Western Ridge, machine gun position. Loaded. Fire. The gun boomed. Another explosion ripped through the rocks. Through the thermal scope, Sophia saw silhouettes scatter, their formations broken, their certainty destroyed. Fear spread like wildfire among them. Few insurgents ever chose to stand against the unstoppable presence of an Abrams main battle tank. On the valley floor, John Davis and his operators seized the moment. Bursts of gunfire cut down retreating fighters. The SEALs shifted position, dragging their wounded, moving with the urgency of men who knew this was their only chance. Neptune 6, this is Iron Wolf, Sophia transmitted. Escape route clearing. Move north on my signal. John's voice crackled back, ragged but fierce. Copy that. We're shifting now. The enemy, however, was not finished. From the eastern slope, a fresh surge of fighters pressed forward, determined to crush the embattled Americans before they could escape. Sophia's scope caught them moving in coordinated lines, using hand signals, their confidence returning as they regrouped. Michael, eastern slope, grid 568433, Sophia commanded. Target acquired. Emma, heat round. Loaded. Fire. The tank roared again. The shell screamed downrange, detonating in the heart of the advancing wave. Dust and fire erupted, bodies hurled in every direction. The rest broke instantly, fleeing for cover. Inside the tank, Emma muttered under her breath, "That should teach them to stand tall." But Sophia wasn't finished. She could still see threats, shapes slipping through shadows, preparing to cut off John's northern escape. "Michael, sequence 3 targets," she ordered. Machine gun at 567429, sniper nest 568433, Mortar remnant at 569431. Copy. Cycling now. Emma, keep feeding him. For the next 2 minutes, the Abrams spoke in thunder. Each shot was precise, the fire control system guiding rounds with merciless accuracy. One by one, the positions that had pinned the SEALs were obliterated, until the valley floor was a scarred wasteland of smoke and fire. The psychological effect was undeniable. Fighters who had been certain of victory now scrambled in panic, their confidence shattered. Some ran deeper into the rocks, others fired wildly, none willing to stand in the open against American steel. Neptune 6, Sophia called. Corridor is open. Move now. Moving. John shouted back. Through her thermal scope, Sophia watched the operators spring into motion. 12 figures, 2 carried between their comrades, raced through the path she had carved, their silhouettes weaving through dust and ruin. They pushed north, toward the extraction point. Above, the thump of rotor blades grew louder. The helicopter was arriving, its shadow cutting across the sand. But the fight was not yet done. As the SEALs moved, a cluster of insurgents attempted one last desperate push, pouring fire from the high ground. Tracers lanced down, sparks spraying against rock near the escaping men. Sophia's jaw tightened. Michael, North Ridge, heavy fire. Identified. Emma, loaded. Fire. The shell hit with crushing force. The ridge blossomed in flame. Fighters flung aside like ragdolls. The gunfire ceased. Silence fell, broken only by the distant thrum of the helicopter and the crackle of flames. John's voice broke over the net. Iron Wolf, we're clear. Moving to extraction point. Couldn't have made it without you. Sophia allowed herself a brief exhale. Relief. Pride. But also the cold realization of what she had done. She had saved 12 men. She had also disobeyed direct orders. Neptune 6. She replied, keeping her tone even. Get your wounded out. We'll cover you until the bird lifts. From her ridge, she watched them reach the pickup zone. The helicopter descended, dust spiraling, rotors chopping the air. The SEALs loaded quickly, dragging their wounded aboard. Within moments, the bird lifted, banking hard and vanishing over the horizon. The mission was complete. They were alive. In the turret, Michael leaned back, releasing the breath he'd been holding. Hell of a fight. Emma gave a shaky laugh. You realize we just disobeyed command, right? Sophia nodded slowly. Her hands tightened on the controls, the weight of her decision pressing in now that the gunfire had ceased. She had chosen life over orders. Time would tell if command agreed. Her headset came alive again with Captain Morrison's fury. Iron Wolf, cease fire and return to base immediately. You will answer for this. Sophia closed her eyes briefly, then responded with steady composure. Copy that. Returning to base. The battle was over. The reckoning was just beginning. The ride back to base was heavy with silence. Iron Wolf rumbled across the desert floor, its treads grinding sand and stone beneath 70 tons of steel. Inside the turret, no one spoke. The battle haze had faded, leaving only the echo of gunfire and the sharp memory of what they had done. Sophia Martinez kept her hand steady on the controls, her eyes fixed forward. Every bump in the terrain jolted her back into reality. She had disobeyed orders, openly, deliberately, without hesitation. It didn't matter that 12 men were alive because of it. In the world of military discipline, disobedience was the sharpest blade a soldier could turn on herself. At last, the walls of the forward operating base came into view, razor wire glinting in the sun. As Iron Wolf rolled through the gates, soldiers stopped what they were doing to watch. News traveled fast in the desert. Word of the tank that had broken protocol to rescue an elite team was already spreading, whispered in awe and disbelief. Captain Robert Morrison was waiting at the motor pool, his stance rigid, his face unreadable. Sophia halted the tank, shut down the engine, and climbed out, boots hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Michael and Emma followed, both avoiding the captain's gaze. Sergeant Martinez, Morrison barked, his voice carrying across the yard. My office. Now. Sophia saluted crisply. Yes, sir. The walk to his office felt like a march to judgment. Inside, The small room smelled of paper, dust, and stale coffee. Files were stacked high on the desk, a reminder that the battlefield was not the only place where wars were fought. Morrison sat down, motioned for her to do the same, and fixed her with a stare that pierced like shrapnel. "Explain yourself," he said flatly. Sophia kept her posture straight. "Sir, 12 operators were seconds from being overrun. Authorization was delayed. I had the firepower to stop it, so I acted." Morrison's eyes narrowed. "You ignored a direct order. You risked one of the most valuable assets in this theater. You jeopardized chain of command." "Yes, sir," she answered. Her voice was steady, but her pulse pounded in her ears. He opened a file, scanning notes. "SEAL team reports your intervention was decisive. Without your actions, casualties would have been catastrophic." He looked up. "You understand that doesn't erase what you did." "I do, sir." The silence stretched. Morrison leaned back, studying her, as though weighing every piece of her character on invisible scales. "You remind me," he said slowly, "of every commander who's had to choose between the book and the battlefield. Some of them ended their careers in disgrace. Some earned medals. Which one you'll be depends on how this goes." Sophia said nothing. She had already accepted the cost. Court-martial, demotion, discharge, it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was that 12 men would see home again. Finally, Morrison closed the file with a decisive snap. "You're being reassigned." Her breath caught. "Sir, to the 3rd Armored Division's Rapid Response Unit," he said. "Effective immediately." Sophia blinked, unsure she'd heard correctly. "Not a court-martial." Morrison's lips twitched into the faintest shadow of a smile. "No, that unit exists for tank crews who've proven they can think independently under fire. It's where soldiers like you belong. You broke rules, yes, but you did it to save lives. That's exactly the kind of initiative they want." Relief and disbelief flooded her in equal measure. "Sir, I thank you." "Don't thank me," Morrison said firmly. "Understand this. What you did was dangerous. If you had miscalculated, those men would be dead, and you'd be sitting in a cell. Initiative is a gift, but it's also a burden. Use it wisely." "Yes, sir." He dismissed her with a nod. "Report to Fort Knox in 2 weeks. Colonel Sarah Mitchell will be expecting you." 2 weeks later, Sophia found herself standing in the Kentucky sun, reporting to her new commanding officer. Colonel Mitchell was a tall woman with sharp eyes that seemed to read deeper than words. She listened to Sophia's recounting of the Valley battle without interruption, her face unreadable. When Sophia finished, Mitchell asked only one question. "If you had to do it again, would you make the same call?" Sophia met her gaze. "Yes, ma'am. If 12 men were about to be overrun, and I had the means to save them, I would do it again." Mitchell nodded slowly, a small, approving smile breaking her stern expression. "Good. That's why you're here." From that day, Sophia trained with a unit unlike any she had known. The rapid response crews were taught to operate without waiting for long chains of command, to make decisions in seconds when minutes meant lives. Their missions were dangerous, unorthodox, and often unrecorded, but their impact was undeniable. Sophia thrived. She found herself in missions where tanks were the difference between disaster and survival, where hesitation meant death, and where commanders trusted her to know when rules had to bend. The lesson of the Valley stayed with her. She had learned that the military was not one thing but many, part discipline, part improvisation, part unyielding order, and part daring defiance. Sometimes victory meant holding the line. Sometimes it meant breaking it. She still thought of that day in Iraq, of the smoke, the fire, and the moment she chose action over obedience. It had nearly cost her everything. Instead, it had given her a new beginning. In the end, Sophia Martinez understood the truth few soldiers ever spoke aloud. Sometimes the most dangerous battlefield was not out in the desert, but inside the heart of a soldier, where duty and conscience collided. And sometimes, the bravest act was not following orders, but knowing when not to.